Yeah, there's actually your attention pledge.
Let's leave the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tell us for minutes and sounds of it. Thank you very much. We welcome you. We did advertise this as a public hearing for the budget, and it is on the agenda, but you'll see it's also a regular meeting of our board, and so you'll be watching a regular board meeting, at which time we call into public comment. You'll have opportunity to speak concerning the budget presentation or any of the items that are listed on the budget that are concerned. And then again next Tuesday, in the same place, at 7, we resume the same forum, but that forum will be specifically both of your board supervisors and school board receiving the same presentation, unless there are modifications to it that we make as a result of this evening. And that will be next Tuesday at 7. We welcome you to our monthly meeting. We are here to accomplish the business of schools for the sake of our students. We do want to hear from our citizens, and there is time for public comment prior to action items on the agenda. We ask that speakers identify themselves and their home district. By the way, one of the reasons to do that is if you have questions and we can provide clarification after the meeting, we'll know how to contact you. We also ask that your comments are limited to 3 minutes in order to provide equity to all speakers and to ensure our meeting is reasonable in its length. If you have more information that can be summarized in 3 minutes, please provide leave-behind materials for the board's review. The moderator will ask you to conclude your remarks as time has elapsed. If you have questions during the session, you may ask for clarification from your school board member or a school administrator after the meeting's adjourned. Thank you all for coming. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda for this evening?
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Grove, second Ms. Meyer. All in favor, aye? Aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It's ordered. Report of the student representative. Do we have a student representative? No. Hey, could you tell everybody your name again when you get over?
Yes.
We're still getting to know you.
All right. Hello, my name is Macy Montgomery. I am a junior here at Rappahannock County, and I am the school board representative. So there was a peer mentor meeting that took place on the 24th of last month, and there were a lot of peer mentors and peer mentees. I personally went, and it was a lot of fun. I got to know the kids a lot. There were parent-teacher conferences on the first of this past month.
Can you speak into the mic closer? Can you raise it up there so we can hear you better?
All the noise goes that way, so we can't hear you.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you. There is a Renaissance Find Your Grind tour, a leadership conference with the school, and kids were selected to go to this, and they came back with a lot of great ideas. There is a lip sync battle for the senior class, and there were 10 acts, around 50 audience members. It was a great success for the senior class for their fundraiser for their senior trip. There are also senior interviews this week, so you bring in your resumes and you do mock interviews. There's a gathering around the flagpole tomorrow in honor of the Parkland school shooting that happened on the 14th of last month at 10 a.m. There's also the National Latin exam tomorrow, which is people all over the nation take this Latin exam. The band is going to Disney this week. We're leaving on Thursday, and we'll be getting back like Tuesday for our spring trip. The writing SOLs start on the 20th of this month. The senior class is having another fundraiser. It's a lunch and a dinner. It's on the 15th of this month. There's spring break starting on 25th to 31st of this month, which would be a good time to de-stress. Prom is on the 7th of April, and the prom committee has been working really hard. I am on the prom committee, and we've been using like paper towel rolls to try to save some money and make it a great prom. And the after prom has actually raised around $8,300 to help, get materials and whatnot, make it a great after prom. The musical, It's a Chorus Line, is doing a fundraiser on the 17th of this month. It's a car wash from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. On April 10th, there's a Virginia Tech and Radford trip, college trips. And sports physicals will be offered by Dr. Miller and Ann Miller, which are at Valley Health, on May 3rd. They're free physicals from 5 to 8 p.m. That's what I have for you guys today. Thank you.
Thanks. Moving on to donations. Rogers, do you have...
Yes, we have a lot of donations, so I just did a spreadsheet just so everyone could see. So many to yes. A lot of
Is that readable from back there? Can you see it? Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Very wide community, actually.
Yeah. Janet Roby.
Janet Roby.
Janet.
She's an instigator.
She's the facilitator of the
Facilitator, sorry.
Yeah. Instigator, facilitator.
All right. That's great. What a great list. All right, thanks. And we will accept donations during consent agenda. Properly. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes of our February 13 meeting? We have a motion from Ms. Myers. Is there a second? Second, Ms. Bonham. Any comments? Changes? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, no. Mr. Grove, did you have an opportunity?
I did. I checked all the bills and checked all the, where they were going. Had a couple questions, but they were answered very satisfactory.
I appreciate you reviewing that. All right, the consent agenda includes approval of donations and payment of bills, personnel report, and attendance report. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? A motion from Ms. Bond. Is there a second? And a second from Ms. Meyer. All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, no. So ordered. Madam Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is typically the point in time where the superintendent delivers the budget presentation. However, one of the board members, I think Mr. Grove, asked, well, I think we need a definition about profile of a graduate because that's not very widely understood. And I'm like, as we're trying to define that, it was, wow, this needs its own presentation because so much of our budget is driven by this new idea of what the graduate looks like from Virginia and from Rappahannock. So that was the conceptual framework on which we built our comprehensive plan, on which drives the budget and how we make our instructional decisions. So this year we were able to put together a profile of a graduate pathways team to figure out how Rappahannock was going to meet this mandate with very few resources. We're not like other schools where we're able to send students to business and industry everywhere for job shadowing and internships and some of the things that other schools are very readily able to do. So for us, it was going to be a unique partnership. So at this time, I would like the Pathways team to come up, and they're going to give a presentation and introduce themselves through that presentation, what they do and how this kind of all came together. But I'm very excited about how this team has tackled the challenge of how the profile of a graduate looks in Rappahannock, and it's, well, the floor is yours. I don't want to steal your thunder at all.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, school board members, Superintendent Grimsley, and distinguished guests. Thank you for having us and giving us this opportunity to speak to you tonight about a profile of a graduate. I'm Danny Pond. I'm a school counselor here at the high school, and I'm just one member of this great Pathways team before you. We are here to introduce an exciting approach to the implementation of the Profile of Graduate mandate initiated by the DOE, which you'll learn a little more later from Ms. Papa. This initiative was added in part to the many responsibilities of school counselors. Although this image was included a little in jest, there's a lot of truth to it. You can stop by my office anytime and see that for yourself. As counselors, we not only address career and academic and social needs of students. Unfortunately, in today's world, there's a growing need for us to address emotional and mental health and school safety. Many might say that we're such a small school that managing this should be quite easy. However, if you compare the duties of the counselors in Rappahannock, including Ms. Lama at the elementary school, we provide above and beyond services to our students to give them the best customer service we can. With the increasing demands of school counselors, it is impossible to implement this mandate on our own and do it the justice it deserves and our students deserve. This is our opportunity to take this profile of a graduate mandate and make it meaningful and do it right. We cannot do this without Jenny Katza and Lisa Heiser, and we are thrilled to have them join us in the counseling department along with Kat Habib to form this POG team, as we call it. These ladies bring a wealth of experience and creativity to our crew, and together we've developed a unique, dynamic, and comprehensive program to help all of our students become life ready.
Good evening. I'm Michelle Papa. I'm the guidance director here at Rappahannock County High School. So what is the profile of the graduate? So the DOE has kind of made changes for the last, say, 5 years or so in this direction. They started with the addition of economics and personal finance as a graduation requirement in 2015, and then continued that with the addition of the industry credential exam that students have to pass to graduate high school. So they brought this even further and made students, like Ms. Pond said, life ready. So they put in these 4 basic mandates that are going to be able to help these students become life ready. Academic and technical knowledge is being one of those. I'm really excited about that technical piece. We're really starting to go in the direction of not just college ready, but sort of career ready, and the trades are a big push for the DOE at the moment, as well as dual enrollment classes. Students will also demonstrate productive workplace readiness skills, quality and behaviors, build connections and value interactions with others as responsibility and responsive citizens, align their knowledge and skills with their career opportunities. I really enjoy the part about building connections. We know how our students are constantly on their cell phones, so to me those interactions piece and being able to prepare them to be productive members of society and be able to make those phone calls and do those things that we all do as adults on a daily basis in the work environment is really important. Schools are also required to ensure that students develop 5 competencies, so we're calling them the 5 C's: critical thinking, creative thinking, communication, collaboration, and citizenship. Our goal is to have our students be a part of our community. So they want to give back to the community as well as, be able to produce products to give to those communities. I know for myself, as the higher end of the millennial team, I really appreciate these initiatives because we get a bad rap. So I think this is going to maybe give us a better rap. And part of this, I want to introduce Lisa Heiser, who's our career coach. Just a little plug for dual enrollment. Our numbers have tripled of our offerings since 2014. At the end of this school year, we will award 387 credit hours to our students from the fall semester to the spring semester. And we're looking into different partnerships with RapU and Lord Fairfax to offer more classes in our community and at our school. So there's plans in place. So Lisa.
So I'm Lisa Heiser, and I'm the Lord Fairfax Career Coach.
I started November 27th, so pretty new to the area as career coach, but we've implemented a lot of things so far. So I actually have two different kinds of jobs that I work. I'm here 2 to 3 days a week, and I'm the Lord Fairfax liaison. So what that means is I've been in charge of all the dual enrollment paperwork, all the placement testing, all the tracking down the kids that still owe money. Anything dual enrollment related falls into my lap. Beyond that, I'm kind of the expert, I say that loosely, for Lord Fairfax with helping them register for classes, teaching them that they don't need to go to a 4-year university to get a good education and move on into the workforce. I'm familiar with the workforce solutions portion of Lord Fairfax where they teach the trade skills, and we have a couple field trips planned this spring for those students interested in HVAC or electrical and heavy equipment operating. That seems to be a big one right now, that the guys want to go see the heavy equipment operating place at Vent Hill. So the second portion of my job is to interact with the middle margin students, and that's a word out of the DOE. Basically, it's those students that don't know what they want to do when they graduate. So I've set up appointments. Once I got here, Michelle and Kat had already kind of surveyed the students to know where they wanted to go to school and what they wanted to do next. And it left about 40 to 50 students that had no idea. So I'm working my way through those, meeting one-on-one with those students to try to help navigate what's next for them. And part of that is career assessments. And so the 10th grade so far, they've all done career assessments through the Virginia Wizard, where we've done value assessments and skills assessments to hopefully match up things that they like to do with things that they might want to use as a career in the future. And then I've helped with job applications, resume creations, the FAFSA. It's pretty much every day is a different day. Whatever they ask, I try to fill in for. But my favorite part is planning the field trips. And this fall, right after I started, we did a field trip to the Winchester Medical Center. We took the CNA students and a few more to go and see all the healthcare options that they could possibly do after high school. And so the Winchester Medical trip happened. Then we're going to Germana to the Auto Tech facility there in April, and then hopefully get into that heavy equipment operators facility in Vent Hill. So I have to say that most of the career assessments, Jenny and I have been tag teaming on it. We have plans to do career assessments for grades 6 through 11. Yeah, we don't need to do 12. 6 through 11, the 6th grade starts on Thursday, and then each week we do a different grade level to introduce them to the career fields, the career clusters, and just get them thinking about what's next from an early age. So I'd like to introduce Jenny Capsa.
Hello. So I'm Jenny Capsa, and I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator. And so besides going into the classroom and doing career programming in the classroom, a lot of what I get to do is to get kids out into the community, and eventually that will look like shadowing and internship types of programs, but also to bring the community into the school. So a lot of what I do depends upon volunteers. So we had a reality store program in the fall, and the reality store, just to touch on some of these programs so you know what they're about, is a financial management program for 8th graders. So the basic idea is that 8th graders come into the gym where there are about 30 volunteers, some of them I think are in this audience right now, at about 15 different stations. The kids come in, they're given a profile. If you are a plumber, you make $2,000 a month. This is your family profile. You might be divorced with 3 kids. And you now have to go to each of these 15 different stations and buy something from each station. And these are items that people need: food, clothing, furniture, a house. And so it's very interesting to watch these kids go and buy a Mustang and then suddenly not have enough money for groceries. So they have to quickly then go back and look at what their budget is and figure out, okay, this is how far my dollar will go. So it's a really great aha kind of a program. We have senior interview workshops coming up next week where the seniors will learn how to interview, followed by senior mock interviews the following week where we have 20 volunteers coming out to lead those interviews. The students, all seniors, will be participating in this throughout the year. So the seniors, I have been told to come with a resume in hand, dressed appropriately, ready to answer questions, And they will be given a 20 to 30 minute interview by somebody from the community who can then pause the interview and say, okay, that answer you just gave, let's tweak that. That might not be the best answer. Let's talk about what you might want to say instead. So it gives them some practice at interviewing before they're out in the real world, which is, of course, happening very, very soon. Also, the 8th Grade Academy is a program I'm very involved with. One of the highlights of that, is the mentor-mentee program. So all 8th graders have been assigned to a junior or senior mentor. The mentors all applied and were hired and trained. So as the mentor, they've got the back of their mentee. They're there for them. They give them a pat on the back. They're there to ask questions to by the mentee. We meet with the mentors once a month, and we meet together with the mentors and mentees once a month to do kind of a big program all together. Last month we had an overnight program, I think Macy touched on that earlier, at the 4-H Ed Center, where we had big team development, 5 hours of team development. There were 50 of us out there. And then we went bowling and did the movies and made some movies and had a big bonfire. It was just wonderful. And it was a great way to bring people together who would not normally be together. And these 8th graders just look up to these seniors so much. It's just so powerful. And these kids are the best role models you can imagine. So that program has been wonderful. Career programming by grade is something Lisa just talked to you about. We also have a portfolio that we're asking all the kids to do starting in the 6th grade so that their career assessments gets put into a portfolio that will follow them through until their senior year of high school. So they can see how they've changed and what they've learned along the way. I started off wanting to be this, and as I've participated in all these career programs, this is now what I've decided I want to do, and this is the direction I plan to take. So they can reflect back on their experiences of this career programming that we're leading. We have life skill workshops throughout the month of April, where we have people coming in to lead workshops to 9th through 12th graders that include things like basic car maintenance, how to fill out a check, what does credit card interest mean, sewing, cooking, yoga. We have a variety of workshops that kids can sign up for as long as their teachers allow them. Their grades are good enough for them to participate in these workshops. And so we're really excited about that. That's just right around the corner. Grant writing, I get to do some grant writing with this job. We're always trying to look for funding to help support these programs. So while I'm thrilled that my position is paid for, we just need some more funds to help, do all the things that we want to do with all these wonderful programs we're telling you about. And then the last but not least is eventually wanting to get the kids out into the community for job shadowing and internships and field trips. So thank you so much. And it's Kat.
Hi, I'm Kat Habib. I'm Headwaters Next Up Program Director. This partnership is very exciting to me as it is a deepening of the ongoing collaboration with Headwaters and Rappahannock County High School. Next Up has now been here for over 10 years, and this is my 4th school year, and it's been wonderful for me to watch the kids in the last 4 years have more of this language of thinking about career exploration and education and financial aid. And so to then have this so fully integrated with this team of people, the potential is amazing. Part of what I do, as Lisa touched on, does indeed change every day. I don't know what I'm coming into, but the base of what I do are these following things that really nicely fit into Provide the Graduate. I do quite a bit of individual meetings with students talking about career exploration and then also exploring post-secondary possibilities, and with that, college selection and application guidance. I also do class lessons of going in and meeting with either the entire grade or individual classes. I tailor these approaches depending on the teacher's request. I work very closely with Michelle doing junior and senior planning meetings, and that's been really a wonderful way for me to get to know the students individually and watch their progress. Another big piece, I think probably one of my favorite pieces, is the college visits. We typically do 3 per year. In my time here, we've gone to UVA, VCU, George Mason, JMU, the University of Richmond, Mary Washington, Lord Fairfax, and Longwood. And as Macy introduced, we are going on April 10th to Virginia Tech and Radford. Headwaters was very generous and has given us the money to get a charter bus to make that a more comfortable and speedy trip. So 3.5 hours doesn't seem quite as daunting as it would on a school bus that goes considerably slower. And then I just announced that to the kids yesterday, so I've gotten some very excited kids coming up to me, and we will hopefully have a full bus. Another big piece of what I do is FAFSA and financial aid assistance. And with that, scholarships, both helping administer the local scholarships with Michelle and then also the Headwater scholarships in and of themselves, which is quite the process. We are very lucky to have new scholarships this year of 20 new $2,000 scholarships in honor of Headwater's 20th anniversary. And it's been a joy to see the increase of the number of applications that I'm currently copying. I stopped counting at 5 reams of paper this week, and I'm gonna go plant a tree. Additionally, a big focus in October and November for me is working towards our annual career day. This is a key piece in the profile of the graduate description of I'm the community liaison, and there's a whole team of people here that helps put together this event, and then I end up reaching out to businesses in the community to come have representatives to talk to kids about what it is that they do in their job, how they do it, and what kind of education they might have. Summer internships are quickly approaching as well, and I'm very excited to have Jenny Capsa with me. We have a small county, and so it's really nice to have another person to help kind of go through all the hollows and find those businesses that might want to have some of our students with them. I personally had a number of internships, and they were hugely influential to me, and I want very much for our students to have that experience, and so it's nice to have additional people to join in on this and let this program grow. So, yeah.
Do you have any questions?
I had a question actually about, it seems like when I picture myself as a, 14, 15-year-old coming into, it seems daunting to me to start thinking like about career at that age. How do you ease the kids into this? I mean, maybe they're 14 or 15 or 16 and they're not ready to decide or to set a path. How do you deal with, I mean, I'm just curious, like, how do you help them to realize that's normal for a 15-year-old?
Well, one of my approaches is, what do you like? And it can be, it's like, do you like plants? Great. Tell me what you like about plants. And then let's talk about all the things that you can do with plants. And then what does that education look like? And kind of working backwards, of starting with the familiar, comfortable object, and then moving from there to discover what possibilities might be out there. And then we also have this whole matrix between Virginia Wizard and all these other digital things we can introduce them. And that is a very comfortable introduction to if kids are comfortable with a computer at this point.
And if I could just step in right there, what you said, this was the impetus behind us designing that, the Worlds of Work career fair, that's the regional 3,000 students come through, because that very thing, we're like, okay, these kids are getting to the academic career planning process, really not understanding career clusters at all, never mind making a choice on what trajectory they want to be on. So if you were a middle schooler, how would you make that real to them? And the idea from all the career tech directors was, well, you make it like Disney World, you make it fun and you make it gross and they handle things and they, that's how it's real to a middle schooler. And that helps them then go back into, with the team, okay, I really loved, and that happens in 7th grade, after the 6th grade does their inventories of how the interest surveys and inventories and things. So then that happens, and that now they've had a real world experience with the career clusters, and then they have a better informed decision to make. And it's not, it's very fluid throughout their high school career path. It's not like once you choose in 7th grade, that's it, that's where you're going.
Yeah, that's
they can
good to
switch
hear
it back and forth.
because that's how we grow up. We change.
That's right.
I'll just say one last thing about that, because I have a 14-year-old girl and who loves BuzzFeed. She's doing tests about herself all the time. So taking those career tests, it's really fun because it's all about you. So she gets to take these tests and then it tells her, spits out a result. Well, this is something you might be interested in. And then she can click around, and kind of learn more about the various careers that have popped up in the career cluster that's popped up for her. And we actually do start in the 6th grade. So this is the first time this week that we're doing this, but we've made it really fun too. So we've come up with some funny jobs, like a rhinoceros horn specialist. Like, where would that person, which career cluster is that? So that the kids are going to play some games. That's kind of what you were just talking about. Anyway, we've made it fun.
Yeah, it sounds like more fun and less serious.
Yeah, but it makes them think. And then they'll write a journal reflection that they'll put in their portfolio in the 6th grade about, well, this is what I learned today. This is what spit out for me today when I took this little test, and well, this is what I think about that, and then we'll continue with that so that when they're seniors, they can reflect that.
great team. Thanks for your work.
Thank you for having us.
So profile of a graduate, when you boil it down, it's got all these moving parts to make it successful. It's a lot of work. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
I know I asked the question, so I need to say it was well done. It was really, really good.
It's good information.
It's very, I know more now than I did yesterday.
Yeah, you know, actually it's true, because before this, it was just another term that we keep hearing, and we're not even sure how to quantify that thing. So really, I do appreciate, you know, your 5 minutes or whatever your target was that you share with us. So thanks for doing that.
Thank you. Thanks so much. They are a great team, and if you saw the handouts that they put out for you as well, it gives a little bit more information about what the Department of Ed expects from profile of a graduate, but it is one of those very lofty, very vague, kind of unfunded mandates that we love from DOE.
Unfunded is the big key.
Yes, so it's really up to the school systems to decide how to implement that, which, you know what, Rappahannock is so excited. We're like, this is our opportunity to be creative and do something very different. We have all these wonderful people in different areas. Let's bring them together and do something very unique and different. So I see these ladies taking this on the road and saying, this is how to do it right, you know, so they did a great job.
Exactly. You know, it's the kind of thing I can
We're
see.
trying to figure a way to sell this program.
That can make some money, right?
Lisa's really good at marketing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Okay, so the budget. I've been leading up to this since January with the governor's proposed budget. Already knowing back in, I guess, the winter, when the LCI report came out, that our local composite index was going to affect us negatively. So it went down, meaning the local effort or the obligation of the locality to fund the schools went up. When the LCI goes down, funding goes up from the county. That's the expectation from Department of Ed based on a lot of different factors. But that's what we kind of knew was going to happen. Governor proposed a budget in January. I'm just giving a recap of where we've been and where we are at this point. January, the old governor, put forth his proposed budget. And in that budget, we could see, you know, how that would affect us locally. And we were concerned because we were losing about $63,000 in state revenue. So that's concerning for a little school like us. That's a lot of money. Okay, so we were like, okay, so we put together some numbers based on what would that be. However, school budgeting is a lot of fun because it's really all conjecture until later, because you have nothing really solid until, you know, your budget's already done. Now in larger districts, that's okay because they have different revenue sources and things that they can pull funding from. For us, we really depend on the locality, and because of our LCI, it's really an unfair funding formula for schools like us. It's unfair to our Board of Supervisors, it's unfair to us. It doesn't really capture the demographics in the school system, in the school community versus what's out in the community. So it puts us at a disadvantage, which, if you remember, we talked about the Rural Schools Coalition. There's 80 superintendents involved in that. I am happy to say that we did get a little bit more funding in lottery, as far as we know. That should continue on, and we're hopeful that the Governor Northam will put in the at-risk funding that we're looking for as an add-on. No news on that yet. We're really trying, though, and advocating very, very hard for
80
that.
of how many? 80 of how many?
132.
Okay.
So that's how many rural districts there are in Virginia. So this funding formula is not, you know, fair to a lot of rural districts in the same way. So we're all banding together. We knew LCI was going to be a losing battle. It's been fought before. It just, that's where the money is, and that's how they're going to fund things. So this is the at-risk add-on for rural schools is a really great way to go for those advocates out there that, you know, want to talk to legislators. The at-risk add-on is what we're calling it. Rural schools are into it. And trying to get additional funding for an at-risk formula that gives every school district a little bit more money, but especially takes in consideration rural schools as an additional at-risk factor. So it's not hurting anybody with LCI, but it's also providing a little bit more equity because a 1 cent tax increase for all the rural schools put together only raises about $19 million. And in a state budget, that's really one locality like Loudoun County could do that and raise 43 million, you know? So that's kind of how that pans out. So it's unfair, and that's where we are. So Governor proposed the budget, we lost 63,000. Then the House and the Senate and General Assembly, those chambers get together and, you know, kind of put some things together. They digest the governor's proposed budget, put in amendments, and see where they want to go. Both of the chambers took away our hold harmless funding that we were counting on from the governor. That was $161,000 that was given to our locality to offset that big hit from LCI and some other adjustments they made. So both of them completely removed that. So when you consider that, they gave back a little bit in enrollment loss funding because of our numbers. And that was another part of the rural schools, kind of got that going, the 10-10-10 rule. If you're 10,000 or less, you lost 10% of your enrollment over the past 10 years. I don't remember what that meant. But you fell into that category, and the legislators did get onto that, and they offered more money in the state budget for those type of schools. So we did get that last year, and it looks like in both budgets we would get that again. So we built that into our projections. But that no loss was a big hit. So all that being considered, and then the consideration of our federal funds, that got hit again too because of revised mandates from the federal level. We lost a whole another chunk of money. So we started out about $149,000 in the hole with this budget. So I said that from the beginning. I was really concerned because we do have a lot of needs. There's a lot of mandates that take effect next year that affect us. So those were the things we had to consider. We were hoping that the houses that went to the Senate and the House that went to conference over the weekend would come back with some more concrete numbers, and they did not agree. The Medicaid expansion is holding a lot of things up at the General Assembly level, so we got a nice little note from the state that said, please be patient for the next several weeks as we pretty much reconcile our differences and maybe come up with something that makes sense. So our budget is based on the House budget, which was the most likely to advance on the floor. And it also gives kind of a worst case scenario, but the most probable is what we're being told from the state, if that makes sense. So a lot of conjecture, but a lot of, as informed guesswork as we can do. And that's what we're really looking at policy all the time and watching that. So that's where we started and where we are now. So putting the budget documents together too, we have something new to share with you because typically the school budget comes out in pages and pages and pages of spreadsheet. And this is, I've kind of been not a fan of this for a long time because it gives no context to what these numbers are. And it's very difficult to go through all these pages, add up all these categories, and then try to make sense of it. It's unfair to the public too when they're trying to give you great advice, but then not understanding the whole picture unless they've been involved in the schools and come to every meeting, and that's not very fair either. So this year was the first year we've done this, but we put together a more thorough report to kind of explain where these numbers are coming from and what's driving it, what our goals are, and really trying to map out the budget as it's connected there, because I feel like the numbers do that in all of these spreadsheets and object codes and all those things, but if you're not a school finance connoisseur, you probably won't understand a lot of what that means. So hopefully the new ancillary report to the budget will help clarify some of those things. That's this, yes.
If you don't have a copy of this, make sure you get one in the hallway. Right. It's very well done and put together, good information. And if there's extras in the hallway, take them and find a friend. And give them to a friend.
I think it'd be a good idea to put some in the library as well, if we could. If we have some leftovers somewhere down the line, people could pick them up.
Post office, any place we can distribute. It's good information.
Which hallway is that?
Ma'am?
Which hallway?
It's in this hallway right here. Right
Can you pick it up and down and get one?
Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
There you go, somebody gave you one.
Thank you. So basically, I just wanted to point out a couple of things in the front of this document that's important before we get into the highlights. And I've asked Stacy Witt, Madam CFO, to sit up here with me because she's done a lot of this legwork and with numbers, and she's just incredible. She can spit out projections and numbers like nobody I've ever seen. So I'm very happy to have her, and she's going to actually lead the discussion about the highlights in just a minute about the budget. But the front of this document states our vision and mission. It's really important. A lot of work went into comprehensive planning of this. I was a part of that as the instructional director, as were a lot of the administration. So it was kind of nice coming in superintendent having been there, because I didn't have to reinvent all this stuff to go forward. We already had it in place, and it's pretty solid work. So the vision is to empower every student to reach his or her potential. And the mission through educational opportunities is to promote a culture of learning, a roadmap for excellence, and the passion and character that leads to each student's success. The strategic goals, which may look familiar to you from the previous presentation: content knowledge that students will achieve and apply appropriate academic and technical knowledge; career preparation, students will align their knowledge, skills, and personal interests with career opportunities; workplace skills, the students will demonstrate productive workplace skills, qualities, and behaviors. Goal 4 is student community engagement and civic responsibility, very important in Rappahannock County. Students will build connections and value interaction as a responsible and responsive citizen. Recruitment and retention, as a rural division, we have a huge challenge with this, being as isolated as we are. So the division will maintain a healthy and positive environment that is conducive to recruitment and retention of qualified staff. Goal 6, parents, family, and community involvement. The division will continue to cultivate successful school and parent partnerships that will be developed with staff and community involvement. And then the link to the comprehensive plan in its entirety, which is a whole other document explaining how those goals came about and where the front matter, all of that. So that's important to point back to those goals, because that's what the budget does. It supports those goals of the division. We all have a very common mission and vision where we're heading, and that kind of helps lead the discussion to a forward motion, which is always helpful. So the conceptual framework in the document is the profile of a graduate. We use that to guide everything, because it's such a pinnacle part to be in education right now. It's so exciting. The whole world is changing right now, and we're going from a W-2 kind of education and workforce to a 1099 workforce. Meaning now we have all these entrepreneurs, and they need the creative thinking. And if you think of K-12 education as sort of a transit system, that's sort of how it was, because you get on at these stops, and you can only get off at certain stops where they're designated, and maybe not exactly where you want to be, but it's pretty close, and you can get off there and kind of get where you need to go. That was sort of how K-12, the trajectory was. It was college-oriented, college preparatory, and a lot of the education showed that. This as a conceptual framework really modifies that completely. Now we're in a stage where we really need to figure out a way to Uberize education. Now we have to take every kid where he or she needs to go right to the destination. So it's very different than the system we saw before. And the Pathways team has been integral in setting that piece up, and I'm very happy we're able to do that. So that guided everything. And then a little message from me about one of the biggest goals of this report is to set up that transparency and context for this budget. That's really important as we go through this, because it's very difficult, like I said, with this document as it was, to really understand what the heck we're doing with this money, and where does it go, and how does it support what you're doing. So hopefully this will give a little bit better context for it. Priorities. We're safety, security of all students and staff. That's paramount. We can't do our jobs if we're not keeping everybody safe. Profile of a graduate. That's guiding everything we do, K-12. Maintaining the high-quality staff we do, and they are incredible staff. Can't tell you enough about how amazing they are. We are a high-performing school, mainly because the staff that work so hard to better themselves and take part in the programs and the training, and we wear so many hats because we're small. We don't have all the supervisors of curriculum in every subject area and specialists for every single thing like bigger districts. We all have to do that on our own, and we have to meet the same state mandates, all the same state reporting, all the same protocols. So we're all doing that together, and I'm just very fortunate to have a staff that they all put on those hats pretty happily and just chug along. So we're very happy. Reduction of class sizes for reading classes. This has been a struggle for us. Even though we're small, we have small numbers. what happens with the past several years, and I've been a part of this process as instructional director too, we've had decreasing numbers. So when you have decreasing numbers, you analyze every single position every year. You really look at the need and funnel your staff where you need them. And that's really difficult because you don't lose all those numbers right in the same pocket. Okay, so when you're talking teaching positions, that's really difficult because if you don't lose them in the same pocket, you're losing some up here, some up here, some up here, and it's not necessarily just a cohort change. And teacher endorsements, unfortunately, don't work like that. Okay, so it's not like I can say, okay, I've got to cut a position and move them down. Then what happens up here, because they may only have a singleton endorsement to teach, a biology class or something. They can't come down and teach K-3 reading or something. So the overall staffing needs to be looked at carefully. Now, what that's done, we have cut, and we have not filled positions as people have left. And what that's caused now in our reading is, okay, you've got the bigger cohort, second grade, first grade, who's moving? Okay, you're moving, and that doesn't give you a very steady, viable curriculum that you can guarantee every year to year. And it doesn't give you good vertical alignment, and it's not great for morale either, because you may be the one picking up and packing up and moving. Have you ever been to an elementary teacher's classroom? That is not a fun job, picking up and moving all of that and going into another room and learning a whole new curriculum. Our elementary teachers have to be experts in everything. And now with the new K-12 trajectory we're on, they really have to they have to be a master of everything and then see what the year before did, the year after. It's problematic and it hurts kids. Best practice says in K-3 that you really need to solidify and mobilize that team to set up the foundations of what you do for everything else. So that's what this budget also was a priority, is how can we do that in a sensible way that makes sense, but also making sure that we're not overstepping too much, because that's bad budgeting. So just carefully analyzing our staffing. Reading program adoption was a priority too, because now we're coming into an adoption cycle again. Every 6 years this happens. Standards have been revised now to meet these new standards. So even as early as the early reading series is, so that changes too. More real world connections, more cross-cultural and cross-curricular integration needed, things like that. So that was a priority as well. Facilities and capital improvement planning was a biggie. We have a lot of things happening. The weather and the strange, bizarre weather this year has really tried our facilities, and we've seen firsthand about how that affects things. So we had to take that into careful consideration in this budget. And community engagement, super, super important here. We have so many amazing people in the community who want to help our schools, and trying to find a way that we can bring people together around common goals as well as support the challenges that we have. So those were the priorities as we went through this budget. This report doesn't hit everything we had to take into consideration, but it hits the main pieces. So Stacy, with that, I'm going to give it over to you to do the highlights of what we did.
All right. So once we got the 2 reports done, we figured, hey, you know what? People are going to want an easy way to kind of look at this and see what has changed, what we've taken away. So we decided to just do a couple slides on the highlights, on the key areas that we focused on for budget. And you'll see there's page numbers listed beside each item, so you can flip to the budget book and see where we're taking the categories, where we're taking the funds, or where we're adding them. It just gives a little bit of a better glance at the budget, I would say. So first off, we were starting with changes that were concerning our staff. With taking in consideration the House budget, that did a mandate 2% increase for our staff. So we went forward with that. We included that in our budget. One great thing that we can say this year is, for I believe the 2nd year in a row, we had no increase to our insurance, which is amazing.
When did commit to be fit start?
2 years ago. So counties around us were hit with anywhere from 6 to 20% increases. So for us to walk away with nothing was huge for us, especially now when we're losing so much money from state and federal. So that was a really happy day for me and Jada when we got that news.
Literally dancing down the hall.
Yeah, we were
Commit to be fit, right?
Yes, that's what we said. Hug and commit to be fit number. They hugged.
Yes.
We also took into consideration the fact that we need additional teachers at the elementary school. So the budget has 2 teachers included with all their benefits, VRS, health insurance, all that into consideration. So we did that. We also included, like Shannon said, the reading adoption, which takes into effect next year for our elementary school. So we added funds into that category for them. We also worked closely with Sheriff Connie this year. We had previously one SRO for both school divisions, or for both schools. And we worked with her this year to provide an SRO for both schools. Now, she takes care of one solely. So we figured out, hey, we'll need one for 180 days. So she worked with us, gave us what an average salary is for a deputy, and we prorated that for 180 days and included that in our budget so that we know we are protected, our kids are safer that way. So we figured that was a great idea, and she was willing to work with us. She's been great. I mean, anybody who drops their kids off in the mornings at the elementary school, you can see them out. It's just a really good job. We also took into consideration teachers' leader stipends this year. That was about $15,000 that we put into effect because we reduced our central office staff quite a bit. We let the teachers take on some leadership duties. We had assistants in the office to help with some work there. We've had people at the elementary school. The reading adoption, that was handled by 2 of our teacher leaders. So we did different things like that to help our teachers. They want to be more involved with us, and so this was a great way for us to do that. The Redone trip that Mrs. Pond works with for the 8th graders, we took that into consideration. Previously, the PTO has helped fund that a great bit in the years past, but we knew that was one of our programs, so we thought it was important for us to put that money forth for them. We also included a part-time school social worker in the budget this year, and also stipends for our teaching aides who actually co-teach. I believe we have 5 at the elementary school currently, so we wanted to give them, because they go above and beyond for us every day, so we thought it was important to show them how much they're appreciated. From there, we went into one of our huge categories is transportation. And so Shannon and I both kind of looked at previous years to see how our expenses range there, and we were able to realize that we could have some savings there. One reason is gas prices haven't gone through the roof lately, thank goodness. So we were able to take some savings there. We added a new equipment line to the budget last year. Our bus garage needed some new software updates. They needed some new, just different pieces of equipment to get our buses on the right track and make sure they were maintained properly. So talking with them, they're actually in a good spot this year, so they didn't feel like they needed that additional funding. So we took that, we reduced there, and then we do have parents that provide transportation for some of our special needs children instead of relying on our bus drivers. So we had a line item there that we were able to reduce based on past expenses as well. So again, all of those changes were based on what we had done in the last 3 or 4 years previously, just kind of realizing that we could make some reductions there. Central office staff changes is probably where a large portion of our reductions came from this year. We do not have an HR director any longer. We spread those duties among the staff that we currently have. We had a finance director and an assistant finance director last year. We reduced that to just one person. We did add a part-time communications officer. Holly has come aboard with us. She also works with our Commit to Be Fit, so we are especially happy for her right now because of our health insurance. And then we reduced our executive directors. We had 5 and we were able to reduce them to 2. Again, we just took on additional duties. She couldn't believe that we could do it, and we've actually we've done well with it, so we were able to save there. Maintenance and capital improvement, the fun part. This year we were able to sign on a contract with Honeywell for a comprehensive maintenance plan. So we will continue that into next school year, and we had to increase our funds in that area to cover that contract. It has been a lifesaver this year because we have had some major issues with our HVAC system. So that was a big help for us. We also increased our plumbing repairs as well. Line item. Water has not been our friend this year. So we thought that with the age of the building, it would be probably wise to increase that a tad. Our water and sewer contracted service, we had to increase that line item as well, only because their contract went up. I think it was $4,800. So, and then again, Robin Bold and Scott Slusher came to a meeting a month ago, and gave us a report on our facilities and what needed to be updated. So we did increase our capital improvement line by what their projected expenses were going to be for the upcoming year. So those were the increases there. And like I said, there's page numbers listed on each one, so you could go through and see what they were last year and what we're budgeting this year. Additional changes that we went through, we reduced our attorney fees by $20,000. We reduced staff development, athletic contracted services. We, in the past, had paid Valley Health for athletic trainer, but we brought her on as a part-time teacher, part-time trainer this year, so she is in our budget fully. Our heating costs, our heating and fuel costs have gone down in previous years, so again, we reduced our line item there to where we feel like it's more appropriate, more where it needs to be. And our electricity as well has gone down in the previous year, so we reduced that line item. Other sources of reduction for us, the high school textbook line we reduced because we were paying for some online software subscriptions through the textbook line, so we have, without increasing the technology budget, moved those things there. So we just kind of reallocated without increasing the technology line. Professional developed, we decreased. High school library, the materials and book supplies, again, we looked for previous years, the previous 4 to 5 years, and realized that there's some funds left over there every year, so we just reduced those line items to what they had been previously. High school and elementary school office of the principal, same thing. Just looked at how they had been spending their funds previously, if there was money left over numerous years, and we decided it was time to cut those funds back. The one thing that we can say, teacher materials and supplies were not touched in this budget. They need everything they can get to help our kids be what they can be, and we knew that was important, so we did not touch that stuff. So an overall look at what our additions and our reductions were. Total additions for us were $611,063. Total reduction, $392,930. Our increases on the were a little more than our reductions. That's the
So those are the highlights of what we tweaked. It was really important going in. We had to do a little bit of treasure hunting because, we had that kind of a reduction. And also smart budgeting practice. We did a 5-year look back on each budget line item that was expenditure driven. So we could see how much was actually going out against what we say we're spending. And if it was an overage every time, like you said, we did reduce those lines to be sure we're a little bit more precise with that.
Could you take a minute and talk about why the addition of 2 teachers at the elementary school? I think it's important for folks to understand the process and the rationale for that.
Exactly where I was going next. Is now give context for some of that, because that was just the highlights of the numbers. So in the report document that you have, we give a lot of the why. Okay, where was the rationale behind some of those changes? Give some demographic information about us. Talk a little bit about enrollment, LCI, which I do want to take just a second about that one more time. Okay, there's a chart here. I'm on page, you can see on my screen, page 7. There's an enrollment and average daily membership trend. And I get this a lot from, from different constituents in the community and different stakeholders about, well, why is it such a difficult thing to tell us, why is it such a squirrely number? What is your enrollment? What is your ADM? And sometimes they're used interchangeably and it's not a very clear number. It is squirrely for quite a few reasons. The ADM, as you can see, is this bottom line here. And you can see it's increasing. But if you look at our enrollment numbers, up here, this was off of the student record collection DOE report. Student records are retained at each of the schools, and we're responsible in some way for this number of students, whether it be for special needs services, services above and beyond that, outplaced students, alternative ed students, certain students up to the age of 21. All of these categories that we're still responsible for serving in some way do count in your enrollment, even if they're not physically in the building. Also, ADM does not take into account any of your preschool kids, your Head Start, and things like that. So it's not, they're still housed in our building. We still have to service them and provide instruction and food and exploratories and safety. Have to protect them. Exactly, that's the big thing. So that's why it's a little squirrely. But that's the method the state uses, and ADM is what they provide partial funding. And it's only a partial funding formula for us. It's almost negligible in the amount that ADM really gives a school budget, especially here with our LCI so high because locality funds so much. So real quick about that. Then the report gives some performance highlights about the school division. We've been accredited, fully accredited the last 4 years, even under more stringent standards and more requirements. Even before they put in the light and soft version of accreditation standards, Rappahannock was making it on the old version. In fact, we were that first year of all the changes, we were one of only 22 in the whole state that made full accreditation. And that's the wonderful staff we have. So high performing school, we want to keep it that way. Another thing we wanted to point out is the school budget on page 9. The percentage of the county budget for the total overall budget that's given to schools is on that page. And as you can see, we've covered around 40% about what the locality gives us to fund the budget historically. And that chart is it as well. Review of previous budget cycles is important to note as well. County contributions over the past several years since fiscal year 13. Our last real increase was back in fiscal year 14 of $300,000 to the schools. And this is sort of what's happened since. We've been on the same operating budget for quite a while, except that 1 year that it did come up. The LCI was adjusted. I'm thinking that's probably why that happened. And then when it adjusted back down, it was taken back. And that makes sense because you'd be getting more federal and state revenue. So you look at it every year, and if that makes sense at the time, that's what we did. Just important. And this year's ask, the proposed, that's important too. $367,214 over the operating budget. What we have is what we're proposing to ask the county for. All right. So the budget structure laid out in categories, and you'll see those in the big budget book. All the object codes that are under each of those line items. Instruction is the largest part. That includes all of your salaries and benefits, classroom instruction supplies, the guidance, a lot of those areas. So that's all included in the instruction category. Makes up usually about 70% of the whole budget. Transportation is the second, and that contains all of your salaries and benefits for all your transportation staff, all your vehicle operating services and your maintenance of your vehicles. Operations and maintenance is your facilities, budget, object codes, and administration, attendance, and health. That's your overhead, your administration, executive services, specialized personnel, health services, and psychological services also fall under that category. So it's not just overhead and administrative costs. And those were the four we really did the most with, and that's why they're called out there. And here's by category where the funds were moved from after doing that analysis of each budget line and everything we felt we needed. All right, so central office, I did want to talk a little bit about this because everything we did was not additional to next year's budget. A lot of it we did within the FY18 budget because of people leaving and we didn't fill those positions. We modified based on what we needed at the time. So in 17-18, I first came on in July, we were able to revamp and reorganize based on what administrators were doing at the time. So that's a lot of that happened out of the FY18 central office, so it's not above and beyond what we asked for that year. But you can see the salary difference in what we did. And adding that 15,000 teacher leadership positions to give teachers a chance to lead really pays off dividends and actually gives you sometimes better information than what we could put together on our own. So I think that's a good trade-off. So the new positions that we added based on the cost avoidance of moving those positions, part-time school social worker for school and safety. We had originally, the previous interim superintendent had advertised for a master social work, actual social worker. But we couldn't fill that for a while. We had a willing person that said, well, I'm a school social worker. It's a little bit different. That was able to, and we had to get the services done. They're mandated. We couldn't not provide services. So that was a modified position. That's still protected in the next year's budget because that we're still able to. It's also an integral part of our Madison agreement, which gets you that $114,000 in supplemental basic aid. That person is the one that travels and does socio-cultural histories for Madison County. If we weren't able to share that person, we wouldn't be able to get that money. That's important. PR digital communications for community engagement. We had kind of a gap in communications we noticed when we first came on. We didn't really understand what the best methods were to communicate with our audience. So we did hire on a part-time digital communications person. In fact, she's about a quarter position. The rest of, calling you out, she's great, but the rest of her is committed to be fit, so grant funded. We really, what she's done is just amazing, bringing the community engagement in and showcasing what the schools are about, and also providing good information about the challenges we're facing and things, and being a liaison to the media and things. That's important. Not a lot of our county has kids in the schools and may not know what's going on, so that's super important. Additional hours for 4-H coordinator, the profile of the graduate, that's Jenny Capsa, is in there with the Lord Fairfax career coach, profile of the graduate. We did that within this year's budget. We were we were the only school district in the Lord Fairfax Community College service region that was not partaking of that grant for career coach. So that's half grant funded. And as you can see, that's such a huge benefit for us to have, and we were doing our students a huge disservice not having that there. So we're very happy. The 4-H coordinator, also the profile of a graduate team called her the community outreach person. That's for, she's already a county employee, so it's really just an increase in hours. So the total cost of both of those is about $22,000, I believe, in the whole overall budget. Split cost with the sheriff's office for the SRO was hugely important when we first came on. Safety is at the forefront of everybody's minds right now, and it was even before all of this started happening in very just awful ways that we're having to deal with now. But that we were able to work out an agreement for 180 days with the SRO to be available full-time at both schools, providing, and they are deputized armed guards at each school all the time, and that makes us feel a lot better. And they're very well trained and involved with our students, and creating that culture of respect and support for law enforcement, very important. And they also take part in our crisis management planning team, thinking like an officer. You know, they can spot our areas of vulnerability and inform us, hey, your procedure doesn't work this way here. You need to really tweak that as administrators, and they've really helped us to be able to do that and provide training as well. ITRT, we didn't really have a dedicated instructional technology resource teacher, which is SOQ driven. Standards of quality, the state says you really need to have this, especially now that they've added computer science standards that are mandated without any funds too. So now we have to incorporate computer science standards and support teachers as they implement those standards, as well as provide instructional strategies and coaching for the world we live in. And that was important. So now we do have a designated person for that who also oversees the testing and helps out with that bear that it is. Sports medicine teacher, athletic trainer through profile of a graduate. That was the, our numbers didn't really make sense to have a full-time athletic trainer. We fought that for a while. It's been a huge benefit for our athletic programs, but we also needed health sciences because now we have the Rappahannock facility. We're teaching CNA now. We found out we could get her a professional technical license that way and teach sports med tech and now graduate certified athletic trainers. So what a great way to open up that door for profile of a graduate and also support that. We found that funding because a beloved teacher here actually who taught so many years in earth science had retired. And then in looking at that, you see that full amount of money there for a position, but they can only teach that one. That was the singleton discussion we were having before. You spend a lot of money on just a little bit of service. You know, whereas this person can provide the health sciences, more goal-oriented sciences that we need because the graduation requirements for lab sciences have decreased. So the need was no longer there. The college prep world, that was definitely there. We needed that. At this point, it needed to be modified. We still needed sciences, but in the health science realm is more career-oriented. That's where we came up with that, and then we already talked about teacher leaders program. So the FY18 costs for all of those positions were the $273. So we subtracted the cost avoidance, and we still had that $45,806 left after we did that. And that all is applied as, toward that FY19 budget. So in the positions, this is your question, how we came up with what we needed. We did a staffing analysis. And other than doing a straight teacher-student ratio, student-teacher ratio, which isn't it doesn't capture what really goes on and how you have to fund a school because it doesn't take into account like block scheduling and certain area positions. And especially when we're looking at standards of quality mandated positions, that's where we really needed to focus the analysis. So we did run a staffing analysis tool to look at where our staff is located, what the criteria the state says we have to have, and some of that is local criteria because you have to take into account your free and reduced lunch, special needs populations in those areas, and things like that. So that determines your criteria, the number of students in those areas, the required staff needed, what your actual is, then you get a difference. So you get a nice analysis of what you have versus what you need. And that's very important in the school system, especially our size, when we're having to really figure out where to place these people, because once they're there, they're pretty much there, and you can't really move them too much. So it's very important to look at every position that way. When we ran the ratio for the elementary school, the total teaching staff actually puts us about a quarter of a person over in those areas, but they're moving. And that's the part we want to mobilize and keep that steady because they're constantly every year moving where the cohort is. And that's been really difficult to have that viable curriculum you need, especially in the K-2, K-3 area where it's so important to keep that steady and consistent. And then we ran it on other elementary school staffing that we have. And I wanted to point out exploratory. Some of our aides at the elementary, and this is what was the impetus behind the stipends for our aides at the elementary, because we get that a lot. Well, you look really heavy on your aides in the elementary school, but that's because we're small, and a lot of our aides take on co-teaching responsibilities where they're doing all the planning, they're actually leading classes, they're under the direction of a professional teacher, but they're providing the instruction and doing a lot of those roles. So we counted them, especially in those exploratory areas. And it's perfectly fine. You can do that in our records and how you license as long as they're being overseen, but they really take on that role for not a lot of money if you look at those aid scales. Very, very little, but it's comparable to other counties as well, but I don't feel like the the role that instructional aid was originally set up, you know, you help the teacher out, you go make copies, you run errands, you do this, is what our aides do at all. More very much into, okay, we need help, we need to differentiate instruction for all these students. You take a small group, you're actually the teacher. That's what it's morphed into, and they need that level of expertise. And they actually, because we're a Title I school, actually have to go into even more depth and take parapro assessments and be pretty proficient in how they differentiate reading instruction. So that's where those came from. When you run the total Rappahannock Elementary staffing difference, we're actually under 1.23 full-time equivalent FTE positions based on the criteria we need. And at the high school, we ran that as well. High school is a lot of fun with block scheduling because you can't extrapolate a true student-to-teacher ratio based on the way the classes are and the straight classes. And the reason for that, and I did try to explain this as carefully as I can in here, it's because you're 4x4, so you have students that take 8 courses throughout the year, and teachers are mandated to have a planning that's equal to the instructional block. Okay, so if that's the mandate, then you have to meet that, but you're only teaching 6. So 6 teaching periods, 8 student periods, you don't get a straight student-teacher ratio. So I'm like, there's got to be a better way. Of course, I looked to my counterparts in Arlington and Loudoun counties, and they do have a better way to analyze that. And they actually use a formula to extrapolate that actual number for your criteria, and that's theirs. That's the way you do that. So your total number of students times the student periods, you divide that by the criteria, which is your max number of kids. Ours was 21 is the criteria because we have certain classes we can't have more than 16 in because of safety. Others can go up to 24 in like English classes and things, and then there's a max class size. So all that put in together comes out to about an average criteria of 21 students per class. So that's what you use. And that's what we needed. So we came out with a total teaching staff difference of minus 0.69 FTE. And in talking with the principals at each building and what we really need, we took those positions that equal about two positions and said, where do we really need these 2 that were down from both schools? And everybody pretty much unanimously agreed that we need that support in our foundational skills in the primary level to make sure these kids are reading by the time they exit 3rd grade, they're reading on grade level. If we don't have that, the rest of this will not make sense. So that's where we want to go.
That's the important part is the reading at K1 to
Yeah.
We've been talking about that for a couple of years too.
2 years at least.
Yeah.
I've been screaming about that now.
Yeah.
Great.
It's true, it's really true. When you're moving staff around at different expertise levels and getting to know the curriculum, it's so different, even just between K1 and 2. The curriculum is just astounding how different it jumps. So having to become an expert over and over and over again, it's difficult
I
to
think
do.
with the new reading series being sequential and in one spot and everybody doing the same thing will be helpful too.
It will. So that's where we came up with that. Salary adjustment, the 2% across the board raise, that's the House mandate that takes that into effect. Now the mandate is SOQ driven. So your SOQ positions, your standard of quality positions are only certain fractions of people in certain grade levels. So we're not big fans of mandates of raises. We feel like we should be able to kind of steer that horse where it needs to go based on what the local level is, just because it's problematic if you say SOQ only, but you're funding 2.3 teachers at 1st grade and then 3.4. Okay, who gets the raise? Half of you gets the raise. But it doesn't make a lot of sense, so we have to fund that ourselves, and it doesn't make a lot of sense for us. But we still have to do it if it's a mandate, but for us it's pretty much across the board because of the funding formula only helps us a little bit. We did a salary study, VEA did, and I stole it. This is what surrounding districts look like as far as salaries. We're ranked 58th for beginning teacher salaries, so it is important for us to stay competitive. All our surrounding county counterparts look like they're going for a 3 to 6% increase for compensation. And that's difficult when we have 1/3 of our employees commuting in. Sometimes it may look that commute may not look so attractive if our benefits and our salaries aren't up to speed. So we've been doing pretty well with that, staying in the middle, but we're one of the top 10 richest communities in the state that we're 58th with our salaries. So it's not our fault, that's just the way they grade us.
Another important part of that is the benefits package. But I think people will see, I guess, when you're doing your recruiting and so forth.
Absolutely.
It's a very favorable benefit.
And that's what we've worked really hard to, that's really the selling ticket when our people go on recruitment fairs. I see a few of them here. That's one of the selling points. And they say, well, what do you got for benefits? What's my leave look like? What can I, all right, that sounds good. I'll travel for that. But we start messing with that, it gets really difficult to retain the high quality staff we have. So that's important. We also put in a table of what we've done throughout the past 5 years or so. So we've done pretty well trying to keep at least a cost of living increase each year. And sometimes the 2% is mandated, and that has been in the past. Other factors are Virginia retirement system. That actually went down for us a little bit, so we were able to really, marginal, just a little bit, but that was considered in there. And local choice, I can't say enough how happy we were that that was 0%. Oh my gosh. That was awesome, because the 15% they originally had told us, if you remember, to project was about $262,000. So I don't know where we would have that would have been difficult. Now, we get asked a lot about our health, local choice health rates, and that was modified pretty recently, and that's in the booklet as well. So you can see the plans that we offer, the contribution from the school board, the deduction from the employee. So it's all there for you to see. Employees do have choices about which plan they're on. We're one of the few that still do a single subscriber subsidy, which is one of our selling points usually for our new people. That's pretty much the thing that gets them here. It's not a huge amount, $655 for the best plan. So our rates are pretty good for local choice. So they're all there. So summary of instructional changes, the real total increase after we consider all of that, a lot of the changes we made in fiscal year 18, so it doesn't impact the budget next year. The total increase was $178,755. No positions or programs were cut. Health insurance the same. We reduced overhead administrative costs greatly and increased the overall instruction. So we took them up here and gave more to the instruction and the support needed for these mandates coming down. These teachers work very, very, very hard to meet those requirements, and they just keep layering on and layering on and layering on without taking too much away. We just got word from DOE that some of the history and social sciences tests that they were going to peel back, they're slowing down on at the high school level now with performance-based assessments because they realized, well, I think it's because they realized that it doesn't make that much money. But also because they didn't have a good way to validate it. So regional instructional leaders in the area are working together to try to come up with better scales, rating scales to validate these assessments and make sure they're getting at the standards. So more alignment needed. Okay, so that's instruction. Transportation, Stacy really hit those big ones in her summary. 46,000 reduced out of that line. Planning ahead, I did want to talk about this because the fleet, super important, big expense. And also this year we had that unfortunate accident where a bus did flip and was totaled and we got $4,500 from the insurance company for it. So we need a bus. A lot of money to get back. I'm hoping with anything end of year that we're able to purchase a bus. And take care of some of the HVAC repairs that we need to do before it falls under comprehensive. Those are the things we're looking at. We're looking at the buses and we're looking at facilities. And those are your end of the year. I have not frozen any accounts on any teachers or anybody. I'm a firm believer in you spend what you say you spend on what it's meant for, but you're always going to have lapse and turnover and monies at the end of the year just because of the nature. And we're conjecture until actual numbers come out later. So you are going to have that. But I would love for us to plan ahead and really think about putting monies toward our capital improvement lines and things that are left over at the end, maybe working with the supervisors to put into a capital improvement line that's in their budget so we can put money somewhere. We can't carry the fund balance, so there's nowhere to really save it. They do have the ability to do that in our capital improvement line. We can start chipping away at that capital improvement plan that our colleagues put together, it's extensive. If I put in year one, it would have been $614,000 for that whole year one package in the capital improvement needs. That's just not feasible. But if we can start plugging away at some of that and put money away toward it, that'd be very, very helpful. It can save a lot down the road when things start to break. With buses, if we can get one out of end of year this year, next year I didn't have enough to really put one in the fleet. But after next year, our lease purchase agreement ends, and that's what had bought, I guess, 6 buses at the time, and you're paying off that agreement. So now $77,000 would be freed up. That's about the cost of a bus. We may have to increase it a little bit, but we put together a 1 bus per year schedule to upkeep our fleet. That's super important in rural areas. If we don't upkeep our fleet, we're not going to be able to do what we do. So we put that together too, thinking way ahead, all the way to fiscal year 35 for our buses. And we have them on a schedule based on their needs, their mileage, what's been repaired, and things like that. So working with transportation. So that's something to think about as well as you tackle this. And then facilities, like I said, those needs are just too much for us to take on in our operating budget, but there is a need to figure out a way with the county to come up with capital improvement. And talking to Mr. Curry, the new administrator, this is his area of expertise, and he is very capable with look forward to working with him in this area, because I think he has a really good idea, great ideas of how to get the whole county in a big picture of how we can move forward with capital improvement, because it's not unique to us. Every department and agency is having these issues too. So I look forward to that. And at least getting us on the radar. That's why we put that plan on. Not that we're going to fund the whole thing or ask for it, but at least get the needs on the radar so people are looking at that. And if you go into board docs, you can see that capital improvement plan. I think we put that in the January and February meeting. All the documents we've talked about throughout the whole budgeting process are all uploaded to board docs, and you can see everything. Okay, and again, that I think that's it. Did we cover everything?
So,
Okay, so that's the budget. Come up with it. Any questions for me?
exceptional job putting this together. Very informative, transparent. Hopefully alleviates a lot of questions that leave people wondering when they're looking at this beast. And again, if there are things in the hallway on your way out, grab them, and we'll do our best to put more of these out in the community. Page 10 has a summary, and then basically there's what does the summary mean? And so if you have any questions, you can contact your representative, one of the administrators, and we'll try to get you answers, something more specific. The way this will mature is after next week's joint hearing, the board will retire into the last work session that we're going to have based upon the input from the public. We will more than likely decide on what the action of the school board is going to be. We have to provide a budget that the board has voted on before the 31st, I think at 3 o'clock or something like that, 31st of March. So we'll be working on that the evening of the 20th, and our hope is that we think we've gotten to our conclusion by that evening, so that we're ready to submit our proposal. So until that time, we're going to continue to be receiving input from members of the public. Are there any questions? Thank you very much.
So much.
Very well done. All right, moving on, the agenda, item 5.1, a report from Headwaters representative.
I'm the one that messed that up. Rachel called me, asked me to go sub, and I said sure, I'd be glad to, and then forgot to go. So I apologize. I have written to Kevin and said no excuse but old age, and hopefully I won't do it again. So I have no report because I wasn't there.
Honesty is the best policy.
MVGS?
We met on the, it was 15th, and we heard the 3 student presentation on biotechnical projects, which was just fascinating. It's always fun to have a program of the process. And then we talked about budget, as we normally do, and we'll probably pass the governor's school budget at our next May meeting, I think. We'll do that budget. It looks like our contribution is stable. It won't go up. So that's a good thing. And our numbers are stable right now.
All right, you'll see the adjustment of the budget calendar, which is what I just went through at the end of our discussion. And we will actually have an action item to adopt this calendar, which is almost done. And so we'll vote on this at the during action items. Is there any questions? All right. Next week's meeting with this Board of Supervisors is back here. RCHS auditorium, it says. So it's right here next Tuesday, 7 o'clock, not 6:30, 7 p.m.
That's a change from the original day.
The original day was, I think, next week. Right. It would have been the 27th,
Yeah.
but we had too many calendars.
And that's on board docs?
Yes.
All right. This next topic is the VSBA Honor Business Honor Roll. And I remember the last time I took part in something like this. But it's really up to the board to decide what they want to do with it this year. Is there a particular business that the board advocates publicly for their support? And it's not something that, we take everybody that made a donation this year, we write them a letter. It's not that kind of thing. So, does the board have any candidates they want us to put forward? Or not?
What did we do last year?
Last year was the Lions. Your recommendation?
I would like to recognize Headwaters for everything that they're doing, especially in the 20th year.
Doing it for a year.
They have,
It just seems like a letter is a little bit, it's just not enough oomph to it.
Yeah. So, yeah, we can nominate.
It is an official.
We've done the Lions Club before.
We did
That's
Lions
legit.
Club last year.
No,
We
2
did
years ago,
Lions
I
Club.
think.
I don't see
It's
why
a
we
good
year
year
to
to celebrate it. You're right.
Yeah, look,
That's a good option.
they've been doing it for years.
And their, nonprofits do count. So we look that up last week.
Great. Sounds unanimous. Let's, I don't think we vote on that. I think let's prepare the thing and get ready for the next meeting, right? Is that all right? Headwaters. All right, moving on to public comment. If you would like to speak to the board this evening, I would ask you to rise and come to the podium and state your name and district. And this will be our public hearing, school board's public hearing on the budget. If you have anything you would like to share, you rise and come at this time. Knowing that you'll have 2 more opportunities to say something.
Ask a question. I don't have a comment, I have a question. I may have heard wrong, but did I hear that the surrounding counties are raising teachers' salaries by 3 to 6%?
That's in the document.
Our budget, it's 2%?
Our target was 2%, yes.
In this current budget?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. And
In next year's
but
budget.
I understand your constraints. I just...
It's 2% in this budget, and surrounding counties are 3 to 6 in this year's budget.
Yeah.
For next year.
And
FYI.
point on that, if I may, is that some of those costs are to absorb the increases in health insurance rates and other VRS mandates that they have. So even though that's a increase, the employees won't really see that in their.
Does that make sense?
So those aren't comparable, 2% and 3 to 6 aren't really comparable.
So they're gonna give their employees 4% and take 2 back,
Yeah.
right, for their health insurance.
So they're going to charge them more for health insurance.
I see.
But actually, it is a good point because their actual salary number
Yep.
will
Taxable income will go up.
comparatively will go up, but their take home will be
Might be better
comparable.
to have it be apples and apples instead of apples and oranges, because it looks as if, I mean, I know our teachers haven't gotten a raise for a couple of years, and I hear such good things about the school, and people do get demoralized, even those who are in love with the work they do.
It's a valid point. Valid point. Thank you. What's your name and district?
Madeline Vine.
Madeline? What's your mom?
I almost was going to say it.
She's the Piedmont.
And your district.
Well, welcome.
Thank you. Great school system, I'm sorry. I mean, what you do.
I've got one of those.
Yeah. Plant out there.
Okay, is anybody else this evening? Anybody else? No? All right, last call. Now, is there anyone else?
I don't know. I was ready to go.
Come.
Yeah.
One formal comment.
Still a Hawthorne district?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Lenny Janot, and I'm the first one to...
My neighbor.
Yes, exactly. Congratulate you guys on this is very impressive. My head's swimming with numbers and stuff like that. I came to just talk briefly a tiny bit on maybe the water situation. Because I know we've had a lot of issues with the water, and I'm glad to see that there's some money put aside for that kind of thing. Years ago, when my daughter was in kindergarten, there was a lead scare at the kindergarten class, and for some reason the teachers didn't even find out for a while, or something happened. I don't really know. I wasn't that bothered with it, but the kids were drinking the water and stuff like that. Kind of got my head thinking, you know, kids like water. My kids especially like cold, clean water. I mean, this is kind of a first world country, right, kind of thing. So I'm pretty active with the PTO. We got going. We were able to get some water fountains for the school, which was awesome. I think the kids really, really like them. I was going to get some quotes from the kids, but I mean, we all know they're pretty popular around here. There's one at the high school, there's 2 over at the elementary school, and they refill your water bottles at the same time also. For years, and now looking at it, it makes more sense as to how it's not been put into the budget. Kind of, they hold a filter, and the filter is able to just filter out the stuff. I think they also have a cooler, which makes it cold and clean water. But PTO did buy those at a pop of about $1,000 per water fountain, which I think PTO was very happy to do that. But for years, it's kind of been a back and forth because they need more filters for it. So they keep coming back, and the filters are about $75 each. And so each year I'm like, well, PTO doesn't mind doing this, but shouldn't the school eventually write into the budget that we would pay for those filters if that's what we want to keep doing with the filters? And it kind of is a back and forth with them. It feels like them kind of saying, well, you're the one who got these water fountains, and us saying, well, you needed them, you know? So anyways, I was just going to come make a public comment about the fact that we really appreciate it. It makes much more sense now with looking at this budget that you guys have tight, you know, strings too that you've got to keep an eye on. PTO is happy to help out, and we're glad to help out, but maybe we could think about some of the facilities, as we all know, are a little bit old and hard to work with, and those kids definitely like those water fountains. And I asked all my kids today, do you drink out of the other ones? They said, heck no, we go to all the other ones. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Is everybody else? Any generic topics to be brought before the board tonight besides the budget? All right, our hearing is closed. Moving on to action items. Is there a motion to approve the adjustment to the budget calendar?
So moved.
We have a motion from Mr. Grove. Second, Mr. Rubin. Is there any discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. So ordered. Regarding the student representative, we had a discussion previously about whether it was her desire to take on a role as representative or to be a liaison. And I forgot to ask her while she was here.
what she just did is her preference.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she just did.
So then I would entertain a motion that we approve the student liaison. And her name is, again,
Macy Montgomery.
Macy Montgomery, as
So
the
moved.
student liaison. Motion for Mr. Grove. Second from Ms. Bynum. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, no. And so ordered. Is there any new business from the board this evening? The next regularly scheduled school board meeting is April the 10th at 6:30 p.m. The next time we meet will be March 20th at 7 p.m., at which time we'll be having a budget work session. The school board will be having a budget work session, which is open to the public. And we will probably retire from this room and go to another room, but you're welcome to join us at that time if you wish. At this time, we are going to, and I think that's it for our planned meetings for the next. At this time, we're going to move into closed session, and we are going to receive information on personnel. We're going to come out of closed session, certify, be back in open session after how many minutes? 10 minutes. If you care to stay, what you will get to see is we'll be certifying that only those things discussed in the meeting were personnel report related. I'm not sure if there's any motions that are coming out of it. Do you expect any motions to come out of that? So there may be a motion coming out of that meeting which we will make related to personnel, and then we'll be adjourning. So if you want to stay for that, you're welcome to. You have to wait about 15 minutes probably. You're welcome to stay. We'll open the door when we're done and let you know. Otherwise, we'll be going through those motions and adjourning. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session. Do we have that motion?
I move that the board convene into closed session for the following purpose: to discuss and consider the appointment of the staff for coaching in classified positions and a licensure discussion for professional staff member pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A1.
All right, we have a motion from Mr. Grove. Is there a second? Second, Ms. Meyer. All in favor, aye? Aye. So we're going to recess while we move to the room.